Flirties. On the show today, we welcome Lily Womble. Lily is a feminist dating coach, former top matchmaker, author of the incredible book, Think You More Please, A Feminist Guide to Breaking Dumb Dating Rules and Finding Love, and host of the Date Brazen podcast. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Oprah magazine. To name a few, she's here to have a conversation with us about dating the patriarchy and how we can ask for more in our love lives. Hello, Lily. Welcome to the show.
Benjamin, hello. I'm so excited to be here. We have a lot to discuss.
A lot to get into today, as we're going to be talking about dating, of course, love, romance, relationships, the patriarchy, the male gaze. Oh my God, a lot.
Oh my God. So for the next 7 hours, I've blocked off time.
I was going to say.
We have.
Can we go ahead, clear our calendars for the remainder of the day and just make this, what, a 7-parter?
And let's, by the way, just go to the pool and bring our mics and just hang out. Because I think that's
Perfect.
the vibe that we're going to bring to this convo.
Perfect. Mine's waterproof. We'll order some lunch. Great. We'll get some sun as we do it. What? Sign me up for that.
That sounds great.
God, I do love a pool day.
Me too. Have you had one this summer?
No, my summer life is really lacking, Lily. I've only even had like one trip to the beach, like one day trip at that.
Wait, where are you in the world? Can you say?
Yes. Okay. This was going to be, can I get maybe a y'all from you, Lily?
Hey, y'all. Where are you?
I'm in North Carolina.
Girl, why? Sorry, I did. So what are you doing there? Are you from there?
I mean, yeah, I'm from here. Greensboro, North Carolina is my hometown. I currently live in Chapel Hill.
UNC Chapel Hill. I have a great friend down there.
You do? And whereabouts in the South are you from?
Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, deep South.
Very deep South.
Deep South.
I would say that it's being from the deep South is like very much a part of my origin story because I live in New York now. It's home. It's been 10 years since I moved here. And, but like having that grounding, I don't know how you feel, but like having the grounding in the deep Southern culture and being aware of how regressive folks can still be toward in some ways, right? Like I grew up going to marriage ceremonies where a woman would pledge to be subservient to her husband.
Yeah.
I was, when I got married, I had my extended family who, God bless them. We love them. And they prayed over me that I would be a good follower of my husband. I mean, like that was not very many years ago. So not to say everything is regressive, but it is like, I'm glad that I have that cultural awareness so that I can do my work even better to like interrupt those narratives of women shrinking specifically.
Yeah, that culture definitely still exists here. I feel like I've always lived in perhaps these more progressive, open-minded bubbles here in the South. I definitely come from a more open-minded family as well. So I've been very fortunate in that regard.
And the progressive folks in the South, what a great group.
Yeah.
Like some of the best people that you will ever meet have chosen to live where they want to live and who are like creating their community and doing community care. And I just I definitely know those people as well, you know?
Yeah, I do love it here. Sometimes I get the question like, would you ever move? Or a lot of times people assume that I'm in LA or New York.
I would be one of them.
But no, here in the South, I love it. Something about it. It's just like it is home to me. Right.
And I love that you're there. I didn't mean to paint with a broad brush with the regressive statement, but I think like our job as human beings is to find our home.
Yeah.
Whether that's people or whether that's a place or hopefully both and, right?
Yes. Definitely. I think both and it seems like every time I leave, I find my way back. Something about it. Maybe it's the biscuits and sweet tea, Lily.
I do actually know somebody in Chapel Hill that I want to introduce you to.
For real?
Well, a friend of mine who like I think you'll love who works at UNC.
Fantastic. Just up the road.
Anyway,
they aren't single and a homosexual by chance, are they?
No, I'm so sorry to say, but they are a really cool woman who's like really fucking changing things. And I don't know. We'll discuss offline.
I'm down. Yes. We'll take that conversation offline. But this has been a fun way to open the show, but we got to get to know you a little bit more. I've gotten to know you some through your book, Thank You More Please, through the podcast, Date Brazen, through your socials. It's all so fantastic. And I want to ask you, my first question here is you share in your book that you describe yourself as a late bloomer.
Hmm.
and then became a top matchmaker
I
in the New
know.
York City area. And so my question here is, I want to explore this concept of a double life a little bit.
Oh, Hannah Montana.
Yes, I think this is going to just resonate with the flirties and everyone listening. I feel this way myself as a content creator, how you're showing up in the world, at least in your career at that time, getting people in the relationship of their dreams. And then
Yeah.
behind closed doors, a little bit of a different story.
Yeah.
So if you could share a little bit more about that experience.
Ooh, well, as you mentioned, I felt like a late bloomer, and that means something different to everyone. But I
Mm,
define it as someone who feels behind in their dating life, and
mm,
that causes stress and
mm-hmm.
like pressure and maybe some shame of like, I should have figured this out by now. My peers have, right?
Yeah.
So, being raised in the Deep South, like we were talking about, I was told that I was too much, too sensitive,
Mm,
too bossy, too intense. And I was told that by a family member, a very close family member at age 12, like, Lily, you're too much and you're going to have a hard time finding a husband.
yeah.
And I didn't realize how much that messaging, and then by the way, I did have a high school boyfriend who broke up with me
Mm-hmm.
saying, you're too much. Like, you literally the script out of my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And so I responded to all of that socialization, to that, being taught that I was too much by friends and family, by that rejection. I took that into my adulthood and made myself really small, made my needs really
Mm,
small, toned down what I wanted, overthought everything that I said, was
mm-hmm.
highly scanning and anxious most of the time, hyper vigilant toward
Yeah.
how am I coming off. I wasn't able to be free, right, in
Mm,
myself. And
mm-hmm.
and so as a result, I met this guy on Bumble. I hadn't had sex yet. I was
Mm-hmm.
25. I felt light years behind my peers. I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to have sex. I had like deconstructed this like evangelical Christian upbringing that I was raised in, this
Yeah.
abstinence only culture that I had in Alabama. And I was also being rejected by men who are like, "Oh yeah, it's still too much, still too much." This guy wanted to be with me that I met on
Okay.
Bumble,
Okay.
and I settled.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with this person. I think that can happen,
Mm-hmm.
but he met none of my emotional needs. Now, meanwhile, I was living in New York. I needed another job because that's what New York is. I feel
It's
like it's
about
like
that
5
hustle.
jobs until you make it.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So I was like a preschool teacher, a music teacher. I was making balloon hats at Senor Frogs in Times Square. I was like
Yes.
making penis balloon hats after 10 p.m. It was a wild ride. And this friend of mine randomly was like, "Hey, Lily, you need more money. I found this matchmaking firm that's like hiring people. Go,
Mm-hmm.
go audition, basically."
Mm-hmm.
Got the job, found that I was really good at I have a high EQ. I ask good questions. And
Yeah.
so I got really good at matchmaking.
Okay.
I set up in my 2 years over 300, I set up about 399 dates, had over 1,000 phone calls with
Wow.
potential dates for my clients. I learned so much about the dating world. And I learned that it's a microcosm of our well being, that it's a
Mm.
microcosm of every hope, joy,
Mm.
dream, fear, insecurity,
Yeah.
desire that we have. What are you thinking?
I,
I
I'm not,
see
I'm
your,
nodding. I'm nodding in
okay.
agreement. Yeah, it's very interesting that like at some point in our dating lives, we come to this realization that dating doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It's not just
Yes.
something you do that exists like sort of in this one area of your life. It really ties into everything, how you feel about yourself, even your education, your career, your other relationships with friends and family. It's
Yes.
all connected, which is honestly a very hopeful and for me inspiring thing because you can work on kind of quote unquote dating outside
Mhm.
of dating as well.
I think it's about cultivating the skill set of main character energy.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that is like how to date confidently, joyfully, and then also live a confident, joyful life. And I,
Yeah.
I can get into like what I think main character energy is and how to build
Hmm.
it. But
Hmm.
but at this point, I didn't have any main character energy for myself. I was like
Okay.
crying on my then boyfriend's bathroom floor, and then taking a matchmaking call 15 minutes later, saying like, "Let's get you out on some great dates."
Yeah.
And I became the third most successful matchmaker out of 160 at that firm.
Damn.
I actually was matchmaker, not to name drop, but just to like give you a picture of what that job was like. Did you
Uh-huh.
see Materialists?
Yes, I did. I made a whole reaction video to it.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So I was matchmakers with that filmmaker and director, the director writer
Oh my
Celine Song.
gosh. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we were colleagues and friends, and so those conversations were like copy paste what I was having with my clients.
That's
And
you were an inspiration for the movie.
Well, she lived it, right, with
Yeah,
me. So I think, like,
that's
we
okay.
both lived this inspiration, and she was talking
Yes.
about making that movie, like, 10, 8,
Wow.
9 years ago when
Mhm.
when they had that wild job. Anyway, when I came to a breaking point, I was having a lot of anxiety
Yeah.
attacks. I was crying every day.
Mm.
I felt pretty depressed
Mhm.
because I thought, this man wants to be with me. He's the only one who has wanted to be
Mm.
with me as an adult. He's the first man I had sex with who wanted to have sex with me. I mean, it was a very dark
Yeah.
state of affairs in my
Yeah.
brain. And I bet people can relate to that, just like feeling like somebody else has to prove to me
Yes.
that I am worthy of what I want,
Mhm.
even if they're not meeting my needs, even if they're not, showing up for me. At least they want to be with me at some level, right?
Yes.
But I was in therapy at the time. My parents were getting a divorce. I came to a breaking point where I was like, I'm living out of alignment. I'm no longer willing to have anxiety attacks about this. I'm no
Mhm.
longer willing. So with the help of therapy, I broke it up. I broke it off with that person. And I
Mhm.
looked around. I was like, how do I never settle again? And
Mm.
then that's when I started to have this deeper awakening for myself of
Ah,
like, I need to heal my "you're too much" story. I was learning the skill of self-compassion. I was being
okay.
coached and mentored by this amazing coach, who was teaching me how to get in touch with that younger version of me who first felt rejected, who first
Yes.
felt too much. I was learning how to give myself permission to own what I wanted and to say it
Yes.
out loud without apology, which is something,
Mm.
especially as a woman raised in the Deep South, so much apologizing, so much people pleasing, so much caretaking. And
Yeah.
I had to unlearn that shit to
Mhm.
step into my most confident, joyful love life.
Yes.
And the magic that started to happen, Benjamin, was that I started to find such great dates. I started to feel free in my dating life.
Mm.
I started to give my number to cuties. I was starting to like shoot my shot more unabashedly because it just felt safer in my body, right? Talk
Yeah.
about coming home. I think of my work as like coming home to myself and helping my clients come home to themselves. And
Yes.
so I started coaching my matchmaking clients with these same tools. They started to find better dates for themselves than
Okay.
I or anybody else could find for them.
Uh-huh.
And the bonus for me was that I met the love of my life, Chris, because of this new sense of self that I had adopted. And
Mhm.
I think that I was getting in my own way before with this like rigid checklist. And
Mhm.
Chris just like jumped off the page and was
Mm.
not somebody who I was expecting to meet or fall in love with. And so about 8 years ago, I broke up with matchmaking and started my company and have since gotten to help over 400 fellow late bloomers step into the
Wow.
most joyful love lives.
Wow. I love it. It also sounds like you found, I mean, main character energy, but flirt energy as well. Getting your
Yeah.
flirt on, Lily.
Oh my God. I
I love it.
vividly do you give your number to waiters or like, what is that like for you? Or have you?
I on occasion, I can think of a couple times that I have. Like one time I definitely did, and it led to one date, and then not really much came of it
Yeah.
after that. But is as a practice of just saying, like, we're gonna get into the really the concept of thank you more please here in a moment,
Yeah.
of basically saying almost like yes please, right here you go.
Yes.
Why
Yeah.
not? Hmm.
Who the fuck cares? I love to say to all of my clients, like, you're not dead yet. Like,
No.
you think you're gonna die from doing this scary thing. You are just gonna do a scary thing, and you might feel feelings afterward.
Yes.
But like,
Yes.
you will become unstoppable when you have that skill of like 10 seconds of courage. You know?
Absolutely. I want to come back to a moment to this concept of duality, which I love exploring on flirtations and in my content because I hear from the flirties a lot where they identify with this late bloomer
Mm,
status. It can mean different things. Like maybe it could be the queer person that is coming out later in life and just starting to
mm,
date perhaps in their 20s, 30s. It could be
mm.
the person that lived in a society somewhere in the world, maybe the South, where they couldn't really be fully
Yeah.
themselves. And so they're
Yeah.
coming into their own, coming home to themselves later in life. It could be
Mhm.
the flirty that's beginning maybe a second life or a new life after a long-term relationship, after a divorce, and is dating again for the first time in decades and feels kind of quote
Mm.
unquote late to the party in a sense. So
Yeah.
I've yes, I hear late bloomer come up in many different ways, but what I want to touch on for a moment more is this idea of being too much but also not enough at the
Mhm.
same time.
Well, we contain multitudes
Yeah.
as human beings. We are never just one thing.
Yeah.
And I also think that in our culture, it's very easy to divorce ourselves from the more vulnerable parts.
Mm.
And especially because of the culture of shame that that we have.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I want to acknowledge the immense privilege that I have had to, I'm bi, and
Mm-hmm.
I realized that in my like mid 20s, right before I met my husband Chris. And when I was flirting with men, what an immense I lived in a world where I felt safe to flirt with who I wanted to flirt with,
Mm-hmm.
and that it was physically safe for me to do so in most cases. And for a lot of queer folks and trans folks, that's not the case.
Right. Right.
And how fucked is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, of course, for folks with one or multiple marginalized identities,
Mm-hmm.
there is a divorcement, or there's a separation of different selves. The self
Yeah.
that feels safe to go out in the world, and the self that I feel like I need to keep hidden because of the fear of judgment or the fear of even violence.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Very true.
So I think that why does that happen? What was the original question? Because I could go off on. I mean,
Well, yeah, just this idea as you were sharing more about that relationship in your 20s, that first one you had, where, this idea of being told you were too much very early in
Mhm,
life. I think you mentioned
mhm,
12 years old. Even if it's
mhm,
something someone says to you one time, like I can
mhm.
think of things someone has said to me one time that just they stick with you, and somehow that
Yeah,
gets internalized and becomes part of your identity. It actually
right.
shapes and shifts how you show up in the world, because you now think about yourself in that way,
Mm,
right? That idea that
mhm,
someone has put in your mind. But then also,
mhm,
you mentioned in that relationship feeling like you were settling, which to
mhm,
me sounds like, oh, well, I'm also not going to be enough for the person I ultimately want to be with. So,
mhm,
I
mhm.
guess this is good enough, right? Mm-hmm.
Totally. And I think for me, why it was so easy to settle, why it was
Mm.
so easy to be a badass in my matchmaking career and feel totally like a shrunken peach at the farmer's market that nobody wants in my love life,
Uh-huh.
is that I was so used to feeling isolated. And I talk about this a lot
Mm.
with my clients, which is like, if isolation is your norm in
Mm.
any part of your life, you are more likely to settle in that part of your life, because the
Yeah.
brain likes familiar things
Yes.
and will gravitate toward familiar things unless you start to up level.
Yeah.
So when I felt ice, and this is why I coach late bloomers who are badasses in so many ways, and they feel so isolated in their love life, and
Mm.
why we do this in community. I have a program called Main Character Dating.
Mm-hmm.
And the intention of the book is to help people feel less alone and to help people normalize their own belonging so that they can become settle proof. Because
Okay.
before normalizing your own belonging, before finding someone who shares a life experience with you of also being a late bloomer, or shares a life experience with you of also feeling behind in this area, before finding that person, you might just be so bought into your own story,
Yeah.
or that internalized socialization that you are too
Mm.
much,
Mm-hmm.
until you start to bring that story into the light with someone, whether it's someone you imagine, like even imagining Benjamin and I talking to you right now,
Mm-hmm.
listener, and like imagining you're in the room with us, like you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And how might, or if it's a friend that you know that you can go to talk about this with, a lot of my clients have never talked about their love lives with their friends.
Wow. I believe it. I have
So
that
I
same
think that's,
experience.
yeah, and I think that's why it's so easy to divorce ourselves from our desires or to settle, because we're just feeling alone
Yeah.
and we don't
Yeah.
know that more is possible. And so I think like that's my intention with this whole fucking work, is like,
Yes.
people are not alone.
Yes.
They don't need to settle. And you're not behind for being single.
Right. Mm. I I love it. I feel like there's a lot of parallels with my mission as well as the flirt coach, of just wanting to, yes, help people with connection, to feel less
Mhm.
alone. Just, I've never really played with the word isolation before, but that's so true. A lot of us feel isolated in our lived experiences when, oh my gosh, like we're not even talking about the thing that's maybe just most important to us if we're looking for that romantic partner, that romantic connection, and we're not even talking about it with our friends. Of course
I
we're going to
know.
feel isolated, or talking about it with anybody. Yeah.
I know. And look, there are some friends who are not very helpful to talk about dating
I
with,
mean,
right? Like, let's acknowledge that.
let's put that out there. You are 100% right.
I have a whole like section of my book about asking your friends to be matchmakers for you and how
Yeah.
to help them help you effectively. I call it
Uh-huh.
co-conspirators. And it's a part of my in-person dating framework. Like, you can
Yes.
help your friends help you better. But I have this whole section about no-nos,
Mm-hmm.
which are like, if they say this,
Mm-hmm.
if they say, oh, you're being too picky and like you're asking for too much, and maybe men don't exist, maybe women don't exist to fill in the blank, because,
Uh-huh.
specifically this like insistence that we have as a culture of expecting less emotionally from men,
Uh-huh.
specifically cis het men.
Yes.
It's like, why are you saying to me that men don't exist who are doing emotional work and like
Mhm.
who are emotionally evolved? And if
Yeah.
that happens, here's the boundary that you set. So I
Right.
like did an if this then that plan for the book
Uh-huh.
of like friends that are probably not best to talk about dating
Yes.
with
Uh-huh.
are insisting that you settle, maybe because they settled. Oop.
Oh, it's
Oop.
possible / probably true. Right?
But there are friends, there are people who will be your cheerleaders and supporters and like
Absolutely.
bring the belonging to you there.
And you only need one. You only
Yes.
need one. All right, Lily, we got to get into up-leveling our love mindset, talking
Mhm.
about main character energy, and let's introduce the Thank You More Please challenge.
I
If you
love
could
it.
share a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I started saying this phrase in my business because I was feeling kind of desperate. I've been in business 8 years. It's been a long time,
Mm.
and a lot of ups and downs.
Congratulations.
You thank
That
you.
is
Thank
that is
you.
not easy at all.
It is,
Uh-uh.
it's a journey, and I love what a privilege to be an entrepreneur. Like,
Yes.
so grateful.
Yeah.
And there were times where I felt kind of desperate
Mm-hmm.
and felt like Oliver Twist with a bowl in my hand saying, please,
Please,
sir, I want
please.
some more. Please, sir, I want some more. And I knew that was not powerful energy.
Okay.
I knew that that's not where I wanted to be, feeling like Oliver, like feeling like I've got to ask for like everything I've got to, right?
Yeah.
But a gratitude practice felt a little bit less ambitious than I wanted
Okay.
at the time. Like, I love gratitude. It's great.
Yeah, sure.
I was like, it's just being grateful and like doing a gratitude list. It sometimes feeling like it's falling a little bit flatter than I want in this season. And so I was just playing with like, what if I said, thank you more, please? What if I said gratitude? Thank you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, for this moment, for this, this blog post I get to write. And then I said, more, please.
Okay.
The audacity to ask for more, especially as a woman or a person socialized as woman, is life-changing and legacy breaking.
Mm-hmm.
And so this idea of thank you more please sort of rumbled around in my brain. It started to bring magnetic results for my life, for my interpersonal life, for my business. I started teaching my clients. They started to use thank you more please whenever they saw a tiny sliver of evidence that what they wanted existed out in the world. Because what do I hear every single day? It doesn't exist.
Yep.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I don't know if you hear the same thing.
Some version of that all the time, right? It's sort of like, it'll never happen for me, or even that could be, well, you're looking at your friends or the couple on social media, or even like watching the movie or something, like, well, good for them kind of thing, or maybe you're mad at them, but like, I guess it's just not gonna be for me.
Yeah, this exceptionalism of like, I'm different and I'm broken, or I'm somehow unattractive, or I'm somehow not fill in the blank. They are. And what I've got to say to you is that you don't know everything, human being who has bought into it not working out. And so thank you more please can be a really actionable way to acknowledge the hopelessness that you have, not toxic positivity your way out of it. Be like, yeah, sometimes I feel lower. Sometimes I feel hopeless. Sometimes I feel scarcity. That's just very human of me. And am I willing to be proven wrong?
Okay.
So go out of
Okay.
your house and
Uh-huh.
start saying thank you more, please, to the tiny slivers of evidence, the flirty conversation for a moment that you have with your
Mm-hmm.
barista. Say
Mm-hmm.
thank you more, please, out loud. If you have a moment of seeing a cutie exiting a therapy office and that is like really exciting to you, proves to you like, okay, cuties go to therapy. Thank you more, please.
Uh-huh.
If you see somebody on social media who you like love what they've got going on, you love their vibe, thank you more, please,
More
to that kind
please.
of person. And the brain loves small wins to
Yes.
build new neural pathways.
Yes.
Neuroplasticity loves
Mm-hmm.
small wins. And
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing with thank you more, please is actually it's the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon or red car theory,
Okay.
which is that what you pay attention to magnifies.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're shopping for a red car, I didn't make this up, it's the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. When you're shopping for a red car, you're more likely to see red cars
Red
everywhere.
cars.
It's not that the instance of red cars increased, it's that your perception of the red cars increased.
Mm-hmm.
When you pay attention with thank you more please to what you want, your perception of what you want will increase and you will see more aligned opportunities out in the wild than you ever have before.
Mm. Okay. All right. This is really, really cool. We're going to stay here for a minute because one of the mindset shifts I feel like I've made here is yes, it's a little bit of that confirmation bias where I feel like you're thinking, right, all men are trash kind of thing. And so you're going
Ugh.
out and dating. And so that may be what you find. It's yes, about showing yourself, almost proving to yourself that the something else can exist, but then it's about being with those feelings, whatever it is, in this process of asking or saying thank you more, please, and just cultivating that self belief
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. Like there's almost these iterations to the thank you more, please challenge where you got to make the ask, right? Express it, but then aligning your belief with that ask.
And it takes time.
It takes time.
And I want to normalize the shit out of the listeners who feel like I could never do this. And I didn't ask. Cursing okay?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Great. Great, great,
100%.
great. I know we're from the South, so I don't want to assume,
It's
but
all
I
good.
had already
The,
said fuck.
the
So
thing
no.
is, I still rate these as clean regardless.
Great. Who cares?
Who cares?
Like
Yeah.
I do. Me too. Me too.
Uh-huh.
So I think people hear this kind of my perception is someone is listening to this conversation thinking, again, that's nice for y'all,
Mm-hmm.
but not for me. I'm
Sure.
different. Yeah, they're still
Mm-hmm.
thinking that. That's okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's helpful to imagine a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And Carl Lowenthal, one of my friends and colleagues, who has the Unfuck Your Brain podcast, talks about the thought ladder. If you're going to
Okay.
build a new belief, then you need to start where you're at and build one little baby step up at a time to build toward the goal belief instead of just like forcing the aggressive, positive thought into your brain, which won't
Toxic
work.
positivity.
Yes. So I think the same with like flirting or like building self-belief, which is like go to build the ladder baby steps toward believing that you're the shit.
Mm-hmm.
Build the ladder baby steps toward flirting IRL, which is like glance at someone you find attractive and smile to yourself. Check.
Okay.
First ladder step done.
Okay.
Maybe I'm allowed to find people attractive.
Allowed permission. All right. I'm going to say now I'm practicing this, and there's a part of this that I'm struggling with where
Say more.
I feel like I'm making the request, right? I'm working on self-belief. I'm working on giving myself permission to just have whatever experience I'm going to experience. But then the part of this is being able to receive whatever it is you're asking for. So, right, a very classic example, you're like, all right, I'm going to flirt with that person. And so you make eye contact, maybe you smile, give a little bit of a head tilt, a wave, something like that. And then they acknowledge you. They flirt back. But then you turn away, you run, I'm out of here. And then you're thinking about it all day and all week. You're telling your friends, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. It's okay. It's okay. We all do it. But how can we allow ourselves to get in that space of receiving as well? That's
Such
the
a good
part that I
question.
find maybe the most challenging.
I think that you're not alone. People who feel this are not alone. I know people who receive an ask out on a dating app from someone that they like, and then they delete the dating app.
Yeah.
And it's like this difficulty, like you're saying, difficulty receiving what you want.
Uh-huh.
And I think a couple things. Let's dispel the myth that receiving should always feel good.
Okay.
That expectation is really unfair.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying this thing that you've never done before, it should feel easy. It
Yeah.
should feel easy. You're wrong. The
Mm-hmm.
self-blame then comes in. You're wrong for running away.
Mm.
No, what if you were just human who is experiencing a vulnerable stimuli and
Mm.
your body went into fight, flight, or freeze
Mm-hmm.
because your nervous system was freaking the fuck out? Because
Yeah.
I just recorded this thing for my program, Main Character Dating. It's called the New Relationship Lab,
Okay.
about like the first few months of a new relationship, because we do step-by-step dating. But then like, what do you do when you're receiving what you want? And there's this
Yes.
idea that people have that like, once I receive that flirtation back, or once I
Mm-hmm.
get into a relationship where somebody chooses me, it'll feel
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you're still a human being.
Yes. Yes.
And it sometimes feels completely intolerable
Yeah. Yeah.
to be
Mm-hmm.
in a new relationship where somebody's choosing you. I
Mm-hmm.
remember I was with Chris and he was choosing the fuck out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been together about 8 years. But my friend asked me a few weeks in, like, how's it feeling? And all I could say was, it feels really weird.
Because
And she was like,
it was different, right?
it was vulnerable.
It's vulnerable.
So what do we do with vulnerability to start receiving what we want, which is that flirtation back?
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Okay.
Saying to yourself, a Brene Brown quote, I love it. I'm just feeling vulnerable. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful for this flirtatious moment.
Okay.
And you just need to practice. Like, what if you just expected that it was going to feel like shit to receive the flirtation back?
Mm-hmm.
And what if you level set expectations too, that you're going to feel really awkward? And that's okay too, because awkwardness is the price of admission for connection.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. It's true. We got to
So
be
how
willing
is this
to.
feeling?
Yeah.
Is this resonating?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking about how this plays out in my dating life as I'm single and dating with a lot of the single flirties. I think about how this is playing out in my career as the flirt coach, and just what I want for this. What's the next step? How am I going to get to that next level? And it's a lot, because I feel like I live a little bit of that double life as well, where, you know, I'm showing up on camera and giving the advice, and now I'm getting into more vulnerable shares, and then it's so weird. And then, you know, I press the stop button, I hit post, and it's just me, right? Like I'm just in my car, or I'm just in my apartment. It's weird to feel like be connecting with the whole world, like sometimes millions of people, and then the phone goes off and I look around and, oh, it's just me.
What do you want, Benjamin?
Like from partnership, from a relationship?
No, just like as you're sharing, I just hear maybe a desire under the surface for like, maybe like, do you like the double life? Do you want more integration? Like, what would that look like?
I feel like what I want, I mean, it's that core need that a lot of us have to be seen, right? To be understood, to really be in that space of vulnerability and not feel like there has to be always a result, right? Or an outcome, but you can just actually be with that, and that be enough. And so just kind of being with that. So then what's the next iteration of the flirt coach, right? It's like I'm definitely feeling that itch, sort of like, ugh, where is this going? Like getting very kind of comfortable with the discomfort.
Yeah. Well, I hear that, you know, the in terms of small wins, and like if we're talking, and I offline would love to talk about like flirt coach and business and like personally, like I love talking about that stuff. So we, you know, when we stop recording, like, you know, let's keep talking.
Okay.
And in terms of flirtation and receiving flirts and receiving compliments or receiving attention that feels like from someone that you want attention from, how vulnerable, I would say everybody start celebrating your small wins. Like let it, in terms of like not needing an output or not needing something to be perfect in order to be worthy and whole. Like, why not? If you freak out receiving attention or affection or flirtation, then really celebrate the small moments where you were courageous for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And the more you can acknowledge that, the more you can build the resilience necessary
Yes.
to receiving compliments. And I have a challenge for everybody that's having trouble receiving flirtation,
Okay.
which is go give 5 compliments this week.
Uh-huh.
And when you receive a compliment from somebody else, either in return or because energetically you're putting out their compliment energy, you probably will receive it in return in some way that you can't expect.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to say thank you.
Okay. There
That's
you go.
it. You're not allowed to be like, oh no, I didn't do anything.
I did
to
deserve that.
this.
Yeah.
Your challenge is to say thank you.
Yeah. All right,
Or
flirties.
even I received that. That's
Mhm.
a good one too.
I'm going to do that one with you all. We're going to do it together. Even the flirt coach can do that one. 5 compliments. This week, if you're listening to this on a Sunday, you've got 1 day. Just kidding. You can extend it into the
And
following
progress
week.
reports DM
Yeah.
to Benjamin and myself. No.
Please let me
Yeah,
know. Leave a
well.
if you're listening on Spotify, on YouTube, leave a comment, right? You can do that. Write a review. Plugging my own podcast on the podcast. All
Right.
right. Lily, I did tell the flirties that we would be talking the patriarchy today. In the remaining part of our time together, let's get into it, which is the classic question here. What are some of the ways, I mean, we've been talking about it, I think, throughout the interview, but some of the ways that the patriarchy shows up in our dating lives?
Yeah. So to mention the patriarchy, which is, for anybody that doesn't know, the definition that I use, and that I use in my book is the system, the social system, political systems that put cis men specifically,
Mhm.
specifically cis het men who are also white at the top of power structures like
Sure,
that
sure.
and we can't talk about patriarchy without also talking about the intersectionality of other forms of oppression like homophobia, transphobia, white supremacy. We can't talk about one without bringing along the other, and that concept coined by Kimberly Crenshaw of intersectional feminism is one that I am learning about. Don't claim to be an expert in by any means, especially as a white woman with a ton of unearned privilege myself. So I just like that let's lay that blanket of understanding over us as we enter into this conversation. Now, if you're a woman or a person socialized as a woman, or you are someone who holds a marginalized identity, I mean, even for cis het men who are also white, who don't necessarily hold a marginalized identity, they also have been negatively impacted by the patriarchy with toxic masculinity. So, like all of us have been fucked up by this oppressive system.
Yes. For
women and people socialized as women specifically, who I work with, I think any time that you've been taught that you were too much, any time that you've been taught that you need to tone it down, any time that you've been told that you're too picky, why is that patriarchal socialization? Because top down, when women are pressured to couple in order to make babies for the labor force. That's why we see this like top down pressure that coupled women are ahead of single women in life. It's a very old fashioned idea. If we look at the reason behind that, I mean, I think it's like when women and people socialized as women dissent from that system of like, I get to actually choose what I want. I get to choose to be child free, or I get to choose to be partnered or not partnered. I get to choose to be married or not married. That upsets the status quo.
Yes. Yeah.
And so women and people socialized as women wanting what they want is actually a revolutionary act of agency that disrupts the status quo. And it's legacy breaking work. I mean, if we think about the last 51-ish years, I mean, women couldn't get a credit card without their husband or father's permission.
Right.
And what does a credit card represent? Economic mobility.
Yes.
Opportunity to leave a bad relationship. If we think about like no fault divorce and this idea that like women had to somehow prove something went wrong in order to receive permission to get a divorce. And like no fault divorce is so great because it's like, I don't want to be with you anymore. Like, bye. And we didn't used to have that. It's very recent. Anyway, all of these things, like acknowledging, this is why I really think that it's important to have this understanding of how legacy breaking it is to own what you want, to ask for it out loud, to release the shame that you've been taught about who you are, what you want. and especially outside of like heteronormative structures.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how patriarchy has influenced our love lives, and how to break out is like just the practice of self-agency
Mm.
and community care.
Yeah. This is, I mean, it's just so important. Flirties, get the book. Thank you more, please. Like I think about the ways the patriarchy has absolutely influenced our dating lives, romance. I mean, we can bring in religion, of course. We can draw in capitalism. I mean, it is like
Oh yeah, didn't
it's
mention the big
ooh,
capitalism.
oh my gosh, it's all connected. But like some of the
Yeah.
just classic ways I think about it is it positions the nuclear family really as the ultimate relationship, the nuclear family being between a cisgender man, a cisgender woman that
Yeah.
makes kids, right? You have the family
Mm-hmm.
where there's also this dependency on the man. Then it creeps in all these very subtle and really subversive ways of, I think, taking away, like you're sharing, the agency that women have to own their bodies, to own their own
Mm-hmm.
choices, to
Mm-hmm.
have the freedom to be in relationship, to not be in
Mm-hmm.
relationship, to date around, see what they want, right? This is where you can get into slut shaming, of course, like that plays out all the time. And it goes both ways too. Like I think about the ways the patriarchy has absolutely infiltrated the minds of men, where you get into this
Yes.
toxic masculinity, red pill culture, 100% on the
Oh
rise.
God.
And I think about this quote from Dr. Shantae Holly, who was on Flirtation, so incredible, where she said, when equality looks like oppression, that's when, like, to a lot of the white guys, women gaining equality or working their way towards equality to them looks like oppression, looks like to them, well, something's being taken away from me,
Right.
right?
Right.
There's
Because the
so
power,
much.
people want power.
Yeah,
Specifically, why would white men not want more power? Right?
of course. Yeah.
Like I think that they want things to stay the same,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact regress. We see that
Mm-hmm.
in the rolling back of Roe v. Wade. I mean,
Yes.
it's a tough time.
Yeah. And some of the trends that we see on social media, right, with the trad wife trend, I think, like, really, I mean, it's hard to say like how big a trend is on social media, because it's kind
Sure.
of this microcosm of society. So like how big is that off of TikTok or Instagram, something like that? Ugh, I think we're starting to see it more and more in marketing campaigns, right, in ads, in even in different forms of media. I think about the black cat energy trend, right? Like that's
Mm.
so big. Masculine, feminine energy dynamics. I mean, there's so much
Can we
here
talk about that?
to talk about. Yeah, let's go there. Let's go there. What are
Okay.
some of your thoughts?
Well, I'm curious as to your thoughts, but I will
Okay.
happily share mine.
Okay.
I think that the masculine feminine energy trend is more
Uh-huh.
harmful than helpful,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
personally. Now if you find value in it, you
Yeah.
go do you. You don't have to agree. Like, we don't have to agree on everything.
Uh-huh.
I think that the insistence on women stepping into their divine feminine in order to attract a man specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's not even get into queer relationships, but
Mm-hmm.
like being in your divine feminine, I think that veers very heavily into traditional patriarchal structures of like what women should be, how women should be showing up, and how women should be behaving in order
Yeah.
to, like, I think taken to its extreme, it's saying like women sit in the passenger seat always and let a man drive always. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not the kind of world or relationship I want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I want
Yeah.
to partner with my partner, and sometimes I take the lead, sometimes he takes the lead. And I do
Yes.
think that binary structure, like, why are we so bought into binaries as a
I
helpful
know.
framework? It's not, I don't think ultimately that it's a helpful framework. And I know that there are scholars on TikTok who are doing a much better job than me at explaining the historical significance
Mm.
and the historical relatively new historical phenomenon of this idea of divine feminine energy,
Mm-hmm.
that it's something that people made up. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, like, again, if it serves you, great. For me,
Mm-hmm.
I want to focus on co-creation.
And I love when you share about co-creation. I mean, I think to an extent, binaries can help us just make sense of things if we can paint things as very black and white, right? It takes away a lot of the questions. It takes away a lot of the ambiguity, some of the confusion. But I think ultimately breaking out of those binaries is really important. And there are some aspects, I must admit, of Black Cat energy that I do like.
Say more.
Where
What do you like?
I featured one of the Black Cat coaches on Flirtation some time ago, and quite a controversial episode, I must admit.
Well, you're stirring the pot.
I mean, we had to go there. It's you can't be on social media without seeing it. And I love how it teaches this independence from men. It's really geared towards cisgender women dating cisgender men. It really speaks to that mental detachment of being unbothered by what he's doing, what he's thinking.
Sure.
And so I love that. It's really, I think, helpful for a lot of anxious attachers or daters that identify in that way, so that you're not just so totally consumed with being picked, being chosen, and just giving up your life for a guy, right?
Yeah.
But still, it falls into a lot of traditional dating dynamics where it only works if the guy chases. It only works if he chases. And the problem I have is that can actually work in dating, to get a guy to chase you, to get a guy to pick you. I could give you that advice all day long, right?
But then aren't you back in the pick me energy?
There you
because
go.
you're
There you
in
go.
a rigid framework that says you have to behave
Yep.
in this certain way in order to be attractive to the
so.
kind of man that you want to be with, right?
Yeah.
And I totally I agree. Binaries can really help us understand the world. Look, I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
worry about it. I mean, if
Mhm.
we talk about the idea of, like humans like and crave structure and answers to, but I in deconstructing a lot of the structures that no longer served me or who I wanted to be in the world, like
Yeah.
having questions, having ambiguity,
Mhm.
getting in the muck of like, what do you
Mhm.
believe? And how
Mhm.
do you want to show up ideally in the right relationship outside of like a prescription?
Mhm.
I think is the recipe for a more wholehearted, powerful life.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm very wary of any like prescriptive dating advice that says you must wait X number of dates before having sex. You must be X kind of Black Cat energy in order for them to chase you. I mean, in my relationship with Chris, he asked me out first. I was still healing from a relationship.
Mhm.
I said no. He was like, cool, totally, great.
Mhm.
Stepped away, didn't hear from him.
Okay.
A couple months later, he came to my mind and I asked him out.
Okay.
And like he said yes. And I was like, awesome, let's go. I asked him out the second, and then I offered to split the bill on the date because I was truly unbothered by who paid.
Okay.
Because I had fun and I wanted to do it again. And I didn't care who paid personally.
Mhm.
And he said, no, I'd like to treat you. He's from Texas. That's, he was like, I'd like to treat you. I said, amazing. I'm going to treat you to the next date.
Okay.
And so I think that is co-creation. Like one person pitches something, another person says whether or not they're game for it. And then if it's the right person, you'll keep coming back to each other.
Yes. Yeah. And oh my gosh, we could talk about this for so long, because like there's so much dating advice out there that's like, don't you ask that man out? Don't you offer to pay for the date, right? Don't you text first after the date? Some questions that came through from the flirties, relating it back to flirting. Well, it's how do I get him to approach me, right? How do I get him to make the first move? And I
can answer that
what
for
do you think
myself,
about
but
that?
I want to know your thoughts too.
I mean, I have trouble answering that question because I feel like take the flirt in. It's easy for me to say, right, as just a guy here on the microphone, right? Take the flirt into your own hands. Make the move. Like you're not setting up the foundation for an entire relationship if you initiate the flirt. Yeah.
100%. I was going to say a similar thing, which is like, look at the story you're telling yourself about making the quote first move. Because I have this philosophy that like make the first move 100% of the time. Sometimes that's just the willingness to do it. Sometimes people will also make the first move for you.
Yeah.
But you can't expect that. You're not in control of that timing. What you are in control of is showing up, saying hi, and then expecting co-creation. That's the right person will be so excited. Well, maybe is in their own mind, in their own brain. Maybe they had a hard day at work or whatever. They're in their brain drama about a friend that's struggling, and they're sitting at that bar, and everybody's thinking about themselves at the end of the day.
It's true.
And sometimes going up to somebody and saying like, "Hey, I love that. Like that book looks really interesting," or "I love that book," or "Oh my God, you have like such a great watch. How are you doing?" Or like whatever it is, can be a great moment to prove to yourself that you can fucking talk to anybody, and that you can co-create the right relationships with people, but they have to show up in equal measure for you.
That's the key, Lily. I think sometimes daters hear, well, I don't want to do all the chasing, right? I don't want to be the one always texting first, always planning. Of course not.
I don't want that for you either.
No, I don't want that. That is not my wish for you, Flirties, at all.
No, but there we have like our brains loving a binary, either or. Either it's I'm chasing and I'm a pick me and I'm failing at all of this dating advice because I needed to text them like, how are you feeling about our relationship? Because I was feeling anxious and that's a failure. Either that or I'm sexy, magnetic black cat girl who does all the rules right. And I am manifesting my partner with these rules that I'm following, right? Both and. Figure out what you want, ask for it out loud and often, put yourself in the way of aligned opportunity.
Okay. All right. Do you have 5 extra minutes?
Yeah.
By chance? All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to squeeze in one more question here, as I wanted to end on this concept of the male gaze, which is something I've explored in my content before. And I was in that for the longest time, right? I'm dating the men's. I want to be seen and be, seen as attractive to the men. So I did not realize for the long, like, this is one of those subtle ways, like you think you're breaking all these barriers and you are, and you're like, oh, wait a second. But there's this other one, and now I'm being impacted in this way. And there's this internalized belief. Okay, let me work through that, where I was still showing up in the world, wanting to be seen as right, appealing, right? Hey, look at me kind of thing. Of course. Which isn't inherently all bad. But when your dating life is really like you're outsourcing a lot of your power because you're trying to make yourself palatable or attractive or appealing to who you want to be dating. So I wanted to get some of your thoughts on this male gaze topic.
Oh my God. Well, you want to be safe. And you live in a structure where you're being perceived, like being perceived is a part of life. And we live in a world that also expects a certain level of perfection in order to be worthy. And perfection meaning a very patriarchal, fat phobic, like ableist, racist thing.
Yeah.
And I totally, so I would say for self-compassion, like, of course you would want to show up and be perceived well and be safe in that regard.
Okay.
Now, it's not actual safety. It is perceived safety, because we're never in control of what someone else thinks about us ever. Right. And we are never in control of who is attracted to us. And that really is hard, especially when, I want to mention my, being a curvy mid-sized woman dating in New York, I was petrified of that like moment at the beginning of a date. I was dating, men, and that moment at the beginning of the date where I feared that they would like look me up and down in a judgmental way. And I was a matchmaker when I would set somebody up with a client. It was a blind date at that firm. And I had people leave the date because they weren't attracted to the person I set them up with.
Yeah.
And I know that happens and it exists and it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And people need to get a fucking grip with their, with how they expect other people to present. Now, that being said, I do think that this whole conversation has been about recentering yourself.
Yes.
And I think that recentering yourself means centering your desire as evidence that what you want exists.
Okay.
And so I do think authenticity is something else that we've been talking a lot about. And so really explore, if you're in the mood to deconstruct how you've been presenting for a male gaze, if that is how you've been presenting, if you're in the mood to do some of that light, fun work.
Just, something, whatever day of the week it is, just
Cute
a fun
little
activity, right?
Then I would say recentering, like looking at even the clothes that you wear.
Okay.
Which of these clothes make me feel good about myself? And which did I choose because I thought somebody else might like the way I look in them? No,
And
that's
that's the
fine,
shift.
but
Yeah.
you have to like it too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And like even small things like for people that wear makeup, how are you doing your makeup? I was taught that you need a full beat to go out of your house. I was taught, when I was raised, I was taught by my aunts, if you don't have eyeliner on, you're naked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you are not attractive if you don't shave your legs, if you don't get the shave your armpits, put on an eyeliner, full beat, earring, bracelet, belt,
yes,
not a hair out of place, So deconstructing that of like, what do you want to, how does it feel good for you to live in the world? What is your creative expression in the world? And how can you kind of get off on what you like about yourself? I think using this like 20 and 2 challenge that I have, which is like, try to write down 20 reasons that you think you're awesome in 2 minutes. And it could include things that you find attractive about yourself physically as well.
Yeah.
And if you if you're in a marginalized body who maybe you're facing fat phobia or ableism or racism on a daily basis or homophobia, transphobia, right? If you're facing oppressive forces that are telling you that you're not enough all the time, then that means you need more self-compassion and collective care. So that, again, bringing in people into your world to help you to talk about this shit with. Hey, I'm saying to a friend, hey, I'm really struggling with feeling attractive for myself. Do you feel like that too? What do you do to feel attractive in your body? And I really think that attractiveness you deserve to feel it for yourself in your own body. And I think that for me, it's ultimately about aliveness. What do you do that makes you feel alive? Is it sitting down to coffee with your bestie and laughing your ass off? Is it going to Zumba? Is it signing up for a neon making class and using your hands in a new way? What makes you feel sexy and alive for yourself? Do more of that shit.
Yeah.
And then suddenly sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing. I'm just loving this conversation so much, and I'm so glad we're ending with this. This is one of the biggest shifts I've made, is just more how do I want to feel, right? I think about like I recently started taking improv classes, and the first one was so nerve-wracking, right? Overthinking, I want to say the right thing. I want people to think I'm funny. And then you're second guessing yourself, and you're in your head and you're thinking later, I could have said that. That would have been so good. And yes, you want to be entertaining. You want to be funny, but also I learned very quickly that's not the objective. That's not exactly the point. The point is to create that connection. It's to create that feeling. And that could be with yourself as well. Really recentering yourself in this process of dating and love and romance is it's just so important.
And I would love to share, no matter who you are, no matter your identity, how you show up in the world, if you desire the right romantic relationship, or relationships, depending on if you want monogamy or polyamory or whatever you want. I truly believe, I'm sitting here in Brooklyn believing that what you want exists, that your desire is evidence that what you want exists, and that the wrong people have already seen themselves out. They will continue to see themselves out. You are for the few, not for the many. And there are so many people in the world that you have not met yet. And that it's not over, right? I've talked a lot about like intersecting forms of oppression imperfectly in this podcast, by the way. And I don't want to I just want to acknowledge like you get to recenter what you want as evidence that it exists and take that as a radical act of your agency and aliveness. And if you don't believe that the right relationship is possible for you, then you can borrow my belief. I'm over here believing it for you until you can believe it for yourself.
You can borrow mine too, Flirties. Your desire is evidence that what you want exists, that it's possible for you. I think that's a beautiful place to conclude the conversation. Lily Womble, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on Flirtations today. I will have some links in the show notes below for this episode, sending all the flirties your way. But to follow you, to check out your podcast, the book, where can they find it all?
You can go to datebrazen.com to learn how to work with me. You can find the book anywhere books are sold. I also did the audiobook.
Amazing.
And you can go to datebrazen.com/book for a bonus when you buy the book. And you can listen to my podcast anywhere podcasts are. And I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at datebrazen.
I will send all the flirties your way, holding the book up in my hands right now. Here we go. Do yourself a favor, flirties. Grab the book, follow Lily, check out the podcast. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.